So now the next topic is concept of wave function. So we have discussed that according to de Broglie's hypothesis of matter waves, if there is a material particle of mass m and it is in motion with some velocity v, then there is a de Broglie wavelength, de Broglie wave associated with the particle in motion called as a matter wave or de Broglie wave, and the wavelength of such wave is given by the equation which is lambda is equal to h upon m into v, or it is equal to h upon p. So this is the de Broglie's hypothesis of matter waves. But if we associate a wave with a particle which is in motion, if there is a particle and it is in motion, and if I am associating a wave with the particle in motion, then it raises two questions. That what is mean by a wave? We have discussed while discussing the properties of particle and wave. We have discussed it. What is mean by a wave? A wave is a spread out disturbance in space. A wave is a spread out disturbance in space. If you produce waves in a pond of water by stowing a stone in a still water, then as soon as you throw a stone in that pond of water which is a still water, then it produce the ripples in the water. So waves are nothing but they are the disturbances in space. So if we associate a matter wave with a particle in motion, then it raises two questions. That how can a wave which is a spread out disturbance in space, how can a wave which is a spread out disturbance in space can represent a particle which is highly localized, because you know that the aspect of particle is it can be located easily in a given space, but you cannot locate the wave, because wave is just a spread out disturbance in space, and therefore a wave nature is such that it is completely non-localized. A wave has the nature that it is completely non-localized thing, because it is a spread out disturbance in space. So a wave is a non-localized thing, while if there is a particle, then at every instant of time you will be able to calculate its position coordinate. So if this particle is performing its motion along this direction, then at any instant of time, say t1, you may be noting, if the motion of particle is in one dimension, then you may note the position of this particle as x1 at this instant of time which is t1. At another instant of time, say t2, you may note its position coordinate as x2. At another instant of time, say t3, you may note its position coordinate as x3, and so on. So you can easily locate where is the position coordinate of the particle is, because particle is a highly localized thing. You can easily locate its position coordinate. But a wave is a completely non-localized thing, because it is just a spread out disturbance in space, and therefore how can a wave, it represents the particle in motion. This is one question. And the second question is, what exactly is the thing that is waving in the matter wave? So what is exactly waving? What is exactly waving in matter wave? You know that different kinds of wave, such as in case of electromagnetic wave. So if you have the electromagnetic wave, it is the electric field and magnetic field vector. It is the electric field vector and the magnetic field vector which varies with space and time. So there is a field vector that is electric field vector and magnetic field vector. So there is a certain physical variable or there is a certain physical quantity which is always a function. It is always a function of position coordinate and the time coordinate. So here, in case of waves which are known to us, such as suppose electromagnetic wave, it is known to us, so it is the electric field and magnetic field, it is called as the wave variable, or it is called as the physical variable or quantity, commonly known as a wave variable, and it is a function of position coordinate and the time coordinate. In case of another wave, such as suppose the sound wave, so if you have sound waves, in case of sound waves also, there is the wave variable which is the pressure. So pressure is the wave variable which varies with space and time, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Sound waves are produced by exerting the pressure on the air particles with the help of a vocal cord, if I am speaking, and generating the sound. So pressure is the wave variable which is a function of position coordinate and time coordinate. It is a function of position coordinate and time coordinate. It means that if you are sitting inside the classroom and I am delivering the lecture, then that lecture remains in the classroom itself because the sound waves, the pressure of the sound waves, it happens that there is a friction between the sound waves and the air particles takes place, and therefore after a certain amount of time, after a few seconds of time, my sound gets diminished. Otherwise the sound waves can persist for long duration. This doesn't happen. It means that it is a function of time period, as well as the sound waves are the function of position coordinate. Position coordinate means if I am delivering a lecture in a classroom, so the sound will remain in the classroom itself. It is not been audible to the other HOD cabin or principal cabin or library and so on. So each and every wave is a function of position coordinate and time coordinate. So here in case of sound wave, pressure is the wave variable which varies with position coordinate and time coordinate. In case of electromagnetic wave also, after traveling a certain amount of distance and certain amount of time, the light waves get diminished if you are using some ordinary source of light or any source of light which is there in your laboratory other than sun. While if you have the mechanical waves such as string waves which are developed with the help of a guitar or something like that, which are the mechanical waves. So vibration of the string, that is the amplitude of the string, it is the wave variable which varies with position coordinate and time coordinate. So if you produce a stroke in a guitar, then the vibrations of the string, it is a function of position coordinate as well as it is also a function of time coordinate. So each and every wave which is known to us has a certain physical variable which is a function of position coordinate and the time coordinate. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So each and every wave is characterized by a certain physical variable which varies with space and time, and therefore it is called as, that is the thing which is waving in that particular wave. So it is the electric field and magnetic field vector which is waving in case of the electromagnetic wave. In case of sound waves, pressure is the thing which is waving in case of sound waves. In case of string waves, it is the vibrations of the string or amplitude of the string which varies with space and time. So it is the wave variable or it is the thing which is waving in the case of string waves. So the question is, what exactly is the thing which is waving in case of matter waves? So this is our second question. So we'll try to find the answer to the second question in coming slides, but right now we are going to give the answer of solving the representation for the particle in motion by a wave and how it can solve the problem of localization of particle in space. How we can at the same time represent the particle, the position of the particle in space. So how to solve this problem of localization of particle in space with the representation of the motion of particle with the help of a wave which is a matter wave associated with it. whenever it is in motion, there is a matter wave or de Broglie wave associated with it. But if we associate a matter wave with the particle in motion, then it creates the problem of localization of particle in space. And how we can solve this problem of localization of particle in space, that we will discuss. So if I say that if there is a particle of mass m and it is in motion, so according to de Broglie's hypothesis, if there is a matter wave associated with it and the wavelength of such wave is given by lambda is equal to h upon mv or h upon p, then this is a monochromatic wave having one particular wavelength, so it is called as a monochromatic wave. And such monochromatic wave representation, like this is a monochromatic wave. Such monochromatic wave representation for the particle in motion is not sufficient, because this is a spread out disturbance in space. Wave is a spread out disturbance in space, and such monochromatic wave may be of infinite extent. It may travel up to, if it is traveling along the direction of x-axis, then it may be of infinite extent, and therefore such monochromatic wave representation of the particle is not sufficient. And therefore it was suggested that instead of a single wave, instead of a monochromatic wave which is associated with the particle in motion, that there should be a group of waves with slightly change in their angular frequency. So instead of such monochromatic wave, a monochromatic wave cannot represent the particle in motion. So it was decided by the group of scientists that monochromatic wave is not sufficient. Monochromatic wave is not sufficient to represent the particle in motion, and therefore instead of that, a group of waves, with slightly change, in angular frequency, and propagation constant should represent the motion of particle. So when all such waves, all such group of waves with slightly change in the angular frequency and propagation constant, when they superpose on each other, they will result in a superposition pattern, or you may call it simply as the interference pattern. And in the interference pattern, you know that wherever the constructive interference takes place, the amplitude of the wave becomes maximum. Wherever the destructive interference takes place, the amplitude of the wave becomes minimum. And therefore, after superposition of all such waves with slightly change in the angular frequency and the propagation constant, it produces the interference pattern, and such interference pattern is called as wave packet. Such interference pattern is called as wave packet. Now why here the amplitude is maximum? Because here the waves with slightly change in their angular frequency and propagation constant, they interfere constructively, while here the amplitude is less than this one, because here they interfere slightly in a destructive way. Here again the intensity is minimum, or amplitude is minimum after superposition, and here it becomes 0. So where the amplitude finally becomes 0, then it means that they interfere completely by destructive interference. Is it clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So in this wave packet, now there are two kinds of waves which are associated with this wave packet. The velocity with which the crest and trough inside the wave packet is moving, the velocity with which this crest and trough, or you may call this as a phase, the velocity with which this phase is moving inside the wave packet, it is called as the phase velocity. So the velocity with which this crest and trough inside the wave packet, it moves with a velocity called as phase velocity. I write it as Vp for the phase velocity. So this is the phase velocity of the matter wave. While there is another velocity which is associated with this complete wave packet, that this complete wave packet, it moves with a velocity. If this complete wave packet, it moves with one velocity, then that velocity is called as group velocity and it is indicated as Vg. So this Vg is called as the group velocity. This Vg is called as group velocity. So the velocity with which this crest and trough inside the wave packet is moving, or the phase inside the wave packet is moving, that velocity is called as phase velocity, while the complete wave packet, it moves with a velocity called as the group velocity, Vg. Then further, this phase velocity Vp is defined as phase velocity Vp is equal to omega by k, where this omega is the angular frequency and k is propagation constant, while this group velocity Vg is defined as d omega by dk, where this d omega is the slight change in the angular frequency. It is the slight change in the angular frequency with respect to each for all the waves which are present in this wave group with slight change in the angular frequency, and this dk is the change in the propagation constant. While here for this phase velocity Vp, it is simply defined as omega by k, where omega is angular frequency and k is propagation constant. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Now what we define is, now we say that wherever amplitude inside the wave packet is maximum, now if you recall that we have seen the properties of the matter waves, and in the third property I mentioned you that these are called as the probability waves, or they are called as the guide waves. So these matter waves, they are defined as the probability waves, or they are called as the guide waves. They are called as probability waves, or they are also called as guide waves, because they are going to give the most probable position of the particle. So they are called as probability waves. Now why they are called as probability waves? Because now we are going to define that wherever amplitude inside the wave packet is maximum, probability of locating the position of the particle, probability of locating the position of the particle, locating the position of the particle is maximum. Probability of locating the position of particle is maximum where amplitude is maximum. So here in this wave packet, for this region, since the amplitude is maximum over this region, probability of locating the position of the particle in this wave packet at this position is maximum, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
While here the probability is less as compared to this one. It doesn't mean that particle can never be present over this region, but its probability is less. Here the amplitude is still minimum than this one, so it doesn't mean that particle can never be present over this region. Yes, it may present, but here the probability of its finding its position in this region is less. So with the decreasing amplitude inside the wave packet, we can say that probability of locating the position of particle becomes minimum, and wherever the amplitude becomes 0, particle can never be present at those position. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So by introducing the concept of this wave packet, now can we locate the position of particle with the matter waves?
Yes.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Here with the monochromatic representation of a matter wave, we cannot represent where is the position, exact position of the particle. If I represent the motion of this particle by this type of a wave, can you locate where is the position of particle, that whether this particle is over here or at this point or at this point or at this point or at this point or at this point, you cannot determine its position. And therefore, instead of this monochromatic wave, it was suggested that a group of waves with slightly change in the angular frequency and propagation constant, they should represent the particle in motion. And when all such waves with slightly change in the angular frequency and propagation constant, when they superpose on each other, they gives rise to a wave packet called, or the interference pattern. In this interference pattern, wherever these waves with slightly change in the angular frequency, for example, there is one wave having angular frequency omega and there is another wave with angular frequency, for instance, let us consider that there are only two waves. In practice there are large number of waves, but suppose for simplicity, if I have one wave with angular frequency omega and other wave with angular frequency omega plus d omega, such that this d omega is very small as compared to that of omega. Similarly, if the propagation constant of one wave is k and the propagation constant of the other wave is k plus dk, so that there is a slight change in the propagation constant, it means that this dk is very small as compared to k. And if these two waves superimpose on each other, then they will superpose in such a way that somewhere the amplitude is maximum, somewhere the amplitude is minimum, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Somewhere
Yes, sir.
they will match in phase, somewhere they will match out of phase. So wherever they will match with in phase with each other, the resulting amplitude will be maximum. Wherever they will match somewhat out of phase, their resultant amplitude will be minimum. So here, after superposition of such large number of waves, which are called as probability waves, we get the wave packet. And in this wave packet, now there are two kinds of velocities which are associated with this wave packet. The velocity with which the phase or the crest and trough inside the wave packet, it moves with a velocity called as the phase velocity. It is simply defined as omega by k, where omega is angular frequency and k is propagation constant. While the complete wave packet, it moves with a velocity called as the group velocity, and it is defined as d omega by dk. Now we define that wherever the amplitude is maximum, probability of locating the position of particle in that region is maximum. So now we can solve the problem of localization of particle in space, because particle is a highly localized thing, while a wave is just a spread out disturbance, and therefore it is a non-localized thing. But here, by defining the amplitude of the wave wherever it is maximum to be the probability, most probable position of locating the position of the particle, so we can solve the problem of localization of particle in space. So that is why we introduced the concept of this wave packet. Is it clear?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Then further,
Yes, sir.
further we will see that this phase velocity Vp has no physical significance, while this group velocity Vg, it comes out to be exactly equal to the velocity of the particle. So we'll show that this group velocity Vg is exactly equal to the velocity of the particle, while this phase velocity Vp has no physical significance. So ये MCQ question में आ सकता है that phase velocity has no physical significance and group velocity Vg is exactly equal to the particle velocity. That we'll see. So this phase velocity of the wave is the rate at which the phase of the wave propagates in space. So phase velocity of the single wave is the velocity with which a definite phase point of either crest or trough of the wave propagates in a medium. So here the phase is nothing but the velocity with which this crest and trough inside the wave packet, it moves with the velocity called as the phase velocity, which is Vp. And as this phase velocity Vp is given by omega by k, where this omega is 2 pi nu, where omega is the angular frequency which is equal to 2 pi nu, and this k is propagation constant which is 2 pi by lambda, and therefore this phase velocity Vp will be equal to omega by k, where this omega is 2 pi nu, and k is propagation constant which is 2 pi by lambda. So this will be 2 pi and this lambda will be in the numerator then. So this 2 pi gets cancelled off and we get phase velocity Vp is equal to nu into lambda. But here if I substitute the value of nu and lambda, what is the value of nu I can substitute here? According to Planck's quantum hypothesis, you know that energy associated with the photon is E is equal to h nu, while according to Einstein's mass energy relation, E is equal to mc square. So by equating these two equations, what I get? H nu is equal to mc square, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So here, if I can write this equation in terms of nu, then it will be nu is equal to mc square upon h. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So
Yes,
this
sir.
phase velocity Vp will be equal to this nu is mc square upon h, nu is mc square upon h multiplied by lambda. What is lambda? Lambda is the de Broglie wavelength. So according to de Broglie's hypothesis, what is the de Broglie wavelength? It is h upon mv. De Broglie wavelength according to de Broglie's hypothesis is lambda is equal to h upon mv. So this h can be cancelled out, this m can be cancelled out, and therefore this Vp, that is phase velocity Vp, is equal to c square by v. Now if you look at the terms which are involved in this equation, Vp is equal to c square by v. What is v over here? This v is the velocity of the particle. V is the velocity of the particle, while what is c? What is c?
Speed of light.
Velocity of
The
light.
velocity of light.
It is c is the velocity of light. So in the numerator you have the term which is c square. How is v as compared to c square?
Small.
Velocity of the particle is very much less as compared to the velocity of light. There is no material particle which can ever attain the velocity of light. So here the term is c square by v. Since v is very much less than c, it means that v is very much less than c square. If v is very much less than c square, then this phase velocity Vp, if you neglect the term v in this equation, then this phase velocity Vp is nearly equal to what? It is nearly equal to c square.
C square.
So if Vp is nearly equal to c square, it means that this phase velocity Vp is very much greater than velocity of light, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
If Vp is
Yes, sir.
if Vp is equal to c square, it means that Vp is greater than c, isn't it? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So if Vp is greater than velocity of light, if there is any velocity which is greater than velocity of light, can we measure this velocity?
No.
Is there
No.
any is there any instrument with which we can measure this velocity which is greater than velocity of light? No. It means that there is no physical significance to the phase velocity. So there is no physical significance to the phase velocity, and therefore it is said to be meaningless. So this phase velocity is meaningless because it comes out to be more than the velocity of light. Is this clear? That this phase velocity is meaningless,
Yes, sir.
or there is no physical significance for this phase velocity?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then next is the group velocity. So this group velocity I already defined you, that here you can see that there are large number of waves which slightly change in their angular frequency as well as propagation constant. So wherever here you can see that the amplitude of all these waves, it meets in such a way that they are in phase with each other. Then here you can see that the maxima of one wave, it meets with the minima of the other, and so on. So they interfere at this position destructively, and something like that. So here wherever the amplitude wherever the maxima of one falls on the maxima of the other wave, it will produce the maxima. Wherever the maxima of one falls on the minima of the other, it will produce the minima, and so on. So here, after superposition of all such waves with slightly change in their angular frequency and propagation constant, it gives rise to the formation of a wave packet. And in this wave packet, we say that wherever the position, wherever the amplitude is maximum inside this wave packet, the probability of locating the position of particle in that region is maximum. So here amplitude being maximum, the most probable position of the particle will be at the middle of this wave packet. While here the amplitude being 0, the particle can never be present in this region where the amplitude becomes 0. So this group velocity, it can be further shown that this group velocity Vg is equal to d omega by dk, where d omega is the change in angular frequency and dk is the change in propagation constant of the superposing waves. So now further we can show that this group velocity Vg is exactly equal to the particle velocity. So the concept of phase velocity is meaningless, as its phase velocity is greater than as its phase velocity would be greater than the particle velocity, and it is also greater than the velocity of light, so it is meaningless. However, it can be shown that this group velocity of the particle is exactly equal to the particle velocity. So we can show that this Vg is equal to d omega by dk, which is equal to p by m, which is equal to v. So thus this group, de Broglie wave group, which is associated with the atomic particle, it travels with the same velocity as that of the particle itself. So whatever be the velocity of this particle, is moving in the space, this group velocity also travels with the same velocity, as that of the velocity of the particle. So this complete wave packet, it will move with the velocity which is exactly equal to the velocity of the particle. So we can show this in a very easy way, that this group velocity Vg is equal to that of the velocity of the particle. For this, again, according to Planck's quantum hypothesis, you know that energy of the photon is E is equal to h nu. We can write this equation in terms of another constant as h cross, where we define this h cross as h upon 2 pi. So I can write this equation, the same equation, in terms of another constant which is h cross, as E is equal to h cross omega, where this h cross is h upon 2 pi and omega is the angular frequency, which is 2 pi nu. So that you know that this h cross omega will be equal to h upon 2 pi multiplied by 2 pi nu. So that this 2 pi gets cancelled off, it is equal to h nu. So this E is equal to h nu can also be written as E is equal to h cross omega. Is it clear? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Then the
Yes, sir.
kinetic energy of the particle can be written as E is equal to half mv square, which we can also write it as E is equal to m square v square upon twice m, or it can be written as p square upon twice m. So we can write according to de Broglie's hypothesis that de Broglie wavelength lambda is equal to h upon p. So I can write here that p is equal to h upon lambda. P is equal to h upon lambda. So this P will be equal to h upon lambda. Now if I multiply this equation by 2 pi and divide this equation by 2 pi, if I multiply this equation by 2 pi and divide it by 2 pi, then this h upon 2 pi, I can write this as h upon 2 pi multiplied by 2 pi by lambda. So this h upon 2 pi is our another constant, which is h cross. So h upon 2 pi is our another constant, which is h cross, and this 2 pi by lambda, is nothing but the propagation constant, which is k, and therefore this p can be written as p is equal to h cross k. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now we use this value of p in this equation, so we get the equation for energy as E is equal to p square. P is h cross k, so p square will be h cross square k square upon twice m. Now here we put the value of energy as h cross omega, So here we put the value of this E as h cross omega. So we get h cross omega is equal to h cross square k square upon twice m. So I can cancel out one of the h cross from both sides, and therefore I will get the equation as omega is equal to h cross k square upon twice m. Now if I differentiate this equation, now here this h cross is another constant which is h upon 2 pi, where h is Planck's constant, 2 pi is a constant. So h cross is constant, m is mass of the particle which is also constant, this 2 is constant, and therefore if I differentiate this equation with respect to k, if I differentiate angular frequency omega with respect to the propagation constant k, then I will get the equation as d omega. Differentiating this with respect to k, I will get d omega is equal to, this h cross will remain as it is upon twice m will remain as it is because this is constant, and differentiating this k square with respect to dk, so it becomes 2k dk. So this 2 can be cancelled out, and we rearrange this equation as d omega by dk. So we get d omega by dk is equal to h cross k upon m. Now what is d omega by dk? We have already defined that this group velocity is defined as d omega by dk. So this d omega by dk is group velocity which is vg, and it is equal to h cross k upon m. This h cross k is nothing but it is momentum, that is p. So it is p upon m. You know what is momentum. Momentum can be written as mass into velocity upon m. So we can cancel out this m from both numerator and denominator, and finally we get the equation that this vg is exactly equal to that of the particle velocity which is v. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So this is important from MCQ type examination, that group velocity is exactly equal to that of the particle velocity. You should be knowing about this thing, and the thing which should be known to you, that the velocity Vp, that is phase velocity Vp, is greater than velocity of light. It is nearly equal to c square, or you should know this formula that phase velocity Vp is equal to c square by v. And since this phase velocity is greater than velocity of light, it is meaningless, or you may call it as there is no physical significance of phase velocity and group velocity. There is no physical significance for the phase velocity, but the physical significance of group velocity is there. The physical significance of group velocity is it is exactly equal to that of the particle velocity. Now what can be the relation between phase velocity and group velocity? What can be the relation between phase velocity Vp and group velocity Vg?
Inversely proportional.
Just look at this equation. Phase velocity Vp is equal to c square by v. What is v? V is the particle velocity, and you know that Vg is exactly equal to v. Therefore the relation between phase velocity and group velocity is Vp is equal to c square by Vg, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So you
Yes,
should
sir.
be knowing about this relation also, that the relation between group velocity and phase velocity is phase velocity Vp is equal to c square by Vg.
Directly.
Then the next is Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. So now if we have a classical particle or a Newtonian particle, then this Newtonian physics or classical physics, it says that whenever there is a particle of mass m, and if it is in motion with some velocity v, then we can measure its position coordinate as well as its momentum coordinate simultaneously and accurately. So what Newtonian physics or classical physics says, that if there is a particle or object of mass m with in motion with velocity v, then we can measure its position coordinate as well as its momentum coordinate simultaneously and accurately. दोनों एक साथ measure कर सकते हैं और accurately measure कर सकते हैं. But for example, if you are traveling in a car from some location to some other location, say from location A to location B with some with car, then you know that there is a speedometer in the car. If you know what is the mass of the car, then you can exactly locate at different intervals of time, that is at t1, t2, t3, t4 and so on, between the two locations A and B, what is your position. So at any instant of time between A and B, your position coordinate will be x1. At any other instant of time t2, your position coordinate will be x2. At any other instant of time t3, your position coordinate will be x3 and so on. So you know what is the exact position of yourself between the two locations A and B at different intervals of time. At the same time, at these intervals of time, you can also measure what is the velocity. So here at any instant of time t1, you can measure the velocity as v1. At any other instant of time t2, you can measure the velocity of velocity of your car as v2. At any other instant of time, you can measure what is its velocity as v3 and so on. And knowing the mass, so mass into velocity is the momentum. So m into v1, m into v2 or m into v3 is nothing but it is the momentum which you can measure. So you can measure the momentum coordinate and the position coordinate simultaneously and accurately. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So you can measure the position coordinate and momentum coordinate simultaneously and accurately according to the classical physics or Newtonian physics. And this is applicable to you if you are traveling in a car, if you are traveling with a motorcycle or anything. If you are traveling, you can note down this. You can note down your position coordinate and momentum simultaneously and accurately. But in case of microscopic particles such as electrons, protons and neutrons, you can never measure the position coordinate and momentum coordinate simultaneously and accurately. And that is proposed by a scientist whose name was Heisenberg. And this Heisenberg gives out the principle known as Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. And this Heisenberg's uncertainty principle says that it is not possible to know simultaneously and accurately both the position and momentum of microscopic particle. You can never measure the position coordinate and the momentum coordinate of microscopic particles simultaneously and accurately. This is the Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. So if I say that if delta x is the uncertainty in the position when momentum is measured accurately, and when delta p is the uncertainty in momentum when position is measured accurately, then according to Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, the product of these two uncertainties is of the order of Planck's constant. That is, delta x into delta px is always greater than h, where this h is 6.63 into 10 raised to power minus 34 joule second, which is the Planck's constant. Or more accurately, it can be written as delta x into delta px, which is greater than or equal to h cross by 2, where you know what is h cross. We have already defined this h cross as another constant, which is h upon 2 pi. So this is the statement of Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, that you can never measure the position coordinate and momentum coordinate simultaneously and accurately for the microscopic particles, while if delta x is the uncertainty in the position when momentum is measured accurately, if I measure momentum accurately, it means that I am not sure about its position coordinate, and that uncertainty is called as delta x when this momentum is measured accurately. While if I am sure about its position accurately, if I measure its position coordinate accurately, then this delta p will be the uncertainty in measuring its momentum. Then the product of these two uncertainties, that is delta x into delta p or delta x into delta px, is always greater than or equal to h, where this h is the Planck's constant, or more precisely or more accurately, it is delta x into delta px is greater than or equal to h cross by 2, where this h cross is h upon 2 pi. So this is the statement of Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, and this is very important. Is it clear? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Is this statement clear to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now we can understand this Heisenberg's uncertainty principle by using the concept of narrow wave packet and small wave packet. So it is not something which is the fault of the measuring instrument, but it is something which is inherent property of the microscopic particles, and due to that you cannot measure the position coordinate and momentum coordinate simultaneously and accurately. So let us consider a narrow wave packet and broad wave packet. So what is mean by a narrow wave packet and what is mean by a broad wave packet is, first we'll see what is mean by a narrow wave packet. So for narrow wave packet, we have seen what is mean by a wave packet. In case of a wave packet, amplitude is very large over one particular region and it is very small over the other regions. So if this is the case, that amplitude is very large over one particular region and it is very small over the other region of the wave packet, then such wave packet is called as narrow wave packet. While if amplitude is nearly equal over the entire range of the wave packet, like this, then such wave packet is called as wide wave packet. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
If amplitude is very large over one particular region of the wave packet and it is minimum over the other regions, it is called as narrow wave packet. While if amplitude is nearly equal over the entire range of the wave packet, then such wave packet is called as a wide wave packet. Now what this amplitude represents in a wave packet? What does this amplitude represents in a wave packet? Wherever amplitude is maximum, what is maximum? Wherever amplitude is minimum, what is minimum?
Distance.
Huh?
Position.
What we have solved? Wherever amplitude is maximum in this wave packet, the probability of finding the position of the particle is maximum. Isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Here, in case of narrow wave packet, since the amplitude in this region of the wave packet is maximum, how is the probability of finding the position of the particle? It is exact. So here you can exactly determine what is the position coordinate of the particle is. But can you measure the wavelength? What is mean by wavelength? Wavelength is the distance between two successive either crest or trough. So can you measure the distance between these two successive crest accurately? No.
No, sir.
Because here the amplitude is too large, here the amplitude is too small. So you cannot measure this distance accurately. So you cannot measure the wavelength accurately. So when you measure, you can measure the position coordinate accurately, you cannot measure the wavelength associated with the particle accurately. And wavelength and momentum, they are related by Heisenberg's uncertainty principle as lambda is equal to h upon p, where this h is simply a constant. So if lambda cannot be determined accurately, it means that momentum cannot be determined accurately. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes, sir.
While what happens with the wide wave packet? In case of wide wave packet, since the amplitude is nearly equal over the entire region of the wave packet, you can measure the distance between two successive crest or trough. That is, you can measure wavelength accurately. If you can measure wavelength accurately, it means that you can measure the momentum coordinate of the particle accurately. But can you measure the position coordinate accurately now? Can you
No.
exactly
No, sir.
say where is the position of the particle? Because here, yes, here the amplitude is maximum. But here in this region, the amplitude is nearly equal to that of this amplitude. So particle may be present over here, or 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 may be present over here. So this is the uncertainty in locating the position of the particle. So delta x is the uncertainty in locating the position of particle when you can measure the momentum associated with particle is accurate. While if you can measure the position coordinate accurately, here delta p will be the uncertainty in measuring its momentum coordinate. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So if you can measure the position coordinate accurately, you cannot measure the momentum coordinate. If you can measure the momentum coordinate accurately, you cannot measure its position coordinate. So this is what the Heisenberg's uncertainty principle is all about. You can understand it with a hypothetical experiment with such a microscope which is able to see an electron. There is no such microscope which can see an electron, so that is why I am saying that this is a hypothetical experiment. So let us consider that suppose there is a microscope which is able to resolve an electron. Resolve an electron means it is able to see the electron. And let us consider that there is an electron which is coming from, suppose, this direction along the x-axis with some initial momentum, say p, along the direction of x-axis, and it enters with this initial momentum along the direction of x-axis in the field of view of the microscope. So this is my field of view. Now can anybody tell me, in order to see this electron, what should be there? अगर मुझे ये इलेक्ट्रॉन माइक्रोस्कोप से देखना है तो मुझे क्या करना पड़ेगा? What arrangement I have to do?
The electron must come in viewing field.
Electron should enter here or what? I just want to see any object. In order to see any object, can you see objects in the dark?
Electron.
Can you see objects in a dark room?
No.
No. So to see an object, what you have to do? You have to shine light onto that object. So when I want to see this electron, when it is passing through this field of view of the microscope, then I need to shine a light onto it. If I shine a photon onto this electron, then this photon, it gets reflected back into the eyepiece, and then with the help of this eyepiece I can see the light which is reflected from the electron. Then I can see that this electron is lying somewhere in the field of view of the microscope. So this delta x will be the uncertainty in the measuring the position coordinate of the electron. So this delta x will be minimum. The delta x kitna hoga? That is the width of this field of view of the microscope. So this delta x will be minimum. But what about the momentum coordinate associated with this electron then? Will this electron move with undeviated path in straight line after this collision of a photon, or it will be deviated?
Deviated.
This electron, when it is incident by a photon, it will reflect the photon back into the field of view of the microscope. So I can measure its position coordinate, and the uncertainty in measuring its position coordinate is delta x, which is minimum. So I can say that electron is lying somewhere in this region, which is delta x, definitely. But what about the momentum associated with this electron? This electron is initially having momentum along the direction of x-axis, but as soon as this photon is incident onto this electron, it gets scattered in any other direction. So when this electron is deflected in any other direction, will it have the momentum along the direction of x-axis?
No.
No, it will not have the momentum along the direction of x-axis because of deviation in any other direction. It will have momentum along the direction of y-axis. If it is deflected in the upward direction, it will have momentum in momentum as plus py, or if it is deflected in the downward direction, it has momentum say minus py, something like that. So it will have the momentum along the direction of y-axis, no more momentum along the direction of x-axis. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So if you want to see, suppose if you are seeing your brother, or if you are seeing your mother or father or anyone, any person in your house, in order to see that person, there are lot of photons which are incident onto it. But due to those photons, is it so that that person is vibrating?
No.
No.
Hmm?
No.
It is not so. Your the person in your house, in order to see that person, light is incident onto that person, which get reflected from the body of that person. It enters into the retina of your eye, produces the sensation of vision. So there are lakhs of photons which are incident on the person's body, but due to those number of photons, is it so that the person is vibrating or deviating?
No, sir.
No.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Why? Because of the fact, how is the mass?
Very large as compared to
It is very large as compared to that of the electron. Electron is a very tiny particle having mass only of the order of 9.1 into 10 raised to power minus 31 kg. So this electron cannot sustain even a single photon. So when a single photon is incident onto this electron, it gets deviated. It cannot sustain this single photon. It will absorb this photon, incident photon, and due to absorption, it gets scattered in any other direction. So it will not keep its momentum anymore along the direction of x-axis. It means that when I try to measure its position coordinate, I will lose the information about its momentum coordinate. Is it clear?
yes,
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now, if I do not shine a light onto it, if I do not shine photon onto this electron, then what would have happened? तो क्या होता?
Electron does not see.
Huh?
It will not be visible.
Not be visible. Yes, this electron would not be visible. If I do not shine a photon onto this electron, then it would not be visible. But what about the momentum then? What about the momentum? Will it get deviated?
No.
अगर फोटॉन
No.
इंसिडेंट नहीं कर रहे, if we are not incident any photon onto this electron, will it be deviated? No, it will continue its straight line path, undeviated straight line path. So it will keep its momentum as it is. So we can measure the momentum coordinate accurately, but now in this time, can we see the position of the particle? Can we see this position of the electron
No, sir.
without incidence of a photon onto it? No. It means that when we try to measure its position coordinate, we lost the information about its momentum coordinate. And when we try to measure its momentum coordinate, we cannot measure its position coordinate. And therefore, this is something which is inherent about the microscopic world. So the physics for the microscopic particles is altogether different than that of the Newtonian physics, which is applicable to particles on larger scale, called as macroscopic particles or macroscopic bodies. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.